should raise topic number one is this racism or a skill issue? Arthur had some thoughts. I'll get back to his thoughts in a second. But in the meantime, let's check out this video. Now, I got to say, this is from ABC News. They tend to block stuff a lot. And the thing is, I kind of want you guys to see it, but I'll take the chance. We'll watch the video, and then we'll discuss it. If it plays.
When the next hurricane will hit, so your home's best defense is being prepared year-round with StormSmart. Act now to save your home from disaster. StormSmart has a proven track record of hurricane protection solutions that save your home and your peace of mind. Since
team has investigated a lot of complaints involving HOAs and how they use their power, but we've never seen anything quite like this.
Yes, so the woman in the smug shot right here wanted us to tell you her story, and she wanted us to show you her mugshot. She was arrested and spent a week in jail for what started out as an HOA complaint over her lawn.
I feel humiliated about the whole thing. You know, like I kind of got my head down because this is so embarrassing.
Well, tonight, investigative reporter Adam Walser there revealing how she wound up behind bars and caught up with the HOA's attorney to ask about his involvement.
This is what they were showing in court, like pictures of the brown grass.
Yep.
The grass isn't always green in Irina Green's yard, thanks to a big tree that you can see in this drone video, and a drought that led the county to impose watering restrictions last year didn't help.
Looks like you got some pieces of sod here.
Green says her yard is far from the worst in Riverview's Creekview subdivision.
If you drive around my neighborhood, you'll see there's plenty of yards that are not up to par.
But so far, she's the only homeowner to actually go to jail for failing to keep her yard up to her HOA standards. It all started with notices from the HOA's management company.
And it went from the grass being brown to, there's a dent in my garage.
Dents too small to see from the road.
That was a part of my court case.
Green was also cited for having a dirty mailbox covered in mildew due to shade and moisture from that same tree.
I would assume you could probably clean that whole mailbox in a few minutes, right?
Yeah.
And for having a cargo van similar to other ones we observed in the neighborhood. The HOA filed a lawsuit against Green in Hillsborough County Court, demanding she correct the violations. She represented herself, preparing handwritten explanations that the HOA and judge rejected. Green appeared at a hearing last July in which the judge gave her an ultimatum.
My grass had to be brung up to par. He said, you can get seeds, you can do something, but you got 30 days to get it corrected. I said, fine. He said, and if it's not done in 30 days, you're going to go to jail.
Irene says she spent the next month correcting the violations.
I sold my van to comply. My mailbox was clean. I bought seeds and watered my grass.
But she missed her next court date.
I was supposed to receive documentation. Nothing was sent to my home. And I reached out to the courthouse several times to try to find out when was my court date.
The judge signed an order holding Green in contempt of court and issued a warrant for her arrest at the HOA attorney's request.
It is pretty extreme. It certainly is, yeah.
We asked Stetson Law professor Paul Boudreau what he makes of this case.
I think it's pretty rare in a civil case for someone to have a contempt order.
Green was pulled over by a sheriff's deputy in late May after picking up her 15-year-old daughter from cheerleading practice.
When I got out, he said, Ms. Green, do you know that you have a warrant for your arrest?
She was taken to the Orient Road Jail.
If they got you handcuffed behind your back?
Yes. I'm treated like a criminal.
At the jail, she got more bad news.
There was no bond, so I couldn't even go home to my family. I sat in there for 7 days. 7 days in the jailhouse, like a criminal.
To be incarcerated without bond is certainly an extreme measure and is pretty rare.
Now there's a mugshot of you right now.
Yep.
How did that make you feel, just to be put in those orange clothes?
It makes me feel horrible. Like I work hard, I work hard to buy this home, for me and my kids in a better neighborhood and environment, and to be taken to jail and to be treated like that for brown grass at my own home, like it's horrible.
David Lair is a Palm Beach attorney who represents homeowners in cases against HOAs. His law partner wrote the best-selling book, Bad HOA.
You have an HOA who was quick to go after her and to use the full force that they are entitled to.
Have you ever heard of it getting to this point where someone actually goes to jail?
I have not seen that. To be clear, the association does not have the power to put you in jail. Certain other events intervened. Certainly, the judge had the right to do it. I think perhaps there could be more lenient remedies.
Green's sister-in-law, who is a paralegal, filed a petition 6 days after she was incarcerated, requesting an emergency hearing.
And I went to court, and I had to be shackled from my hands to my feet.
And you're there in civil county court, right?
Yeah.
You're the only one wearing orange, right?
Yeah, the only one.
Green's relatives sent pictures of the yard and other evidence to the judge, a different one than the judge who issued the arrest warrant. Green says an attorney for the HOA opposed her release.
He says, well, it hasn't been resodded. The whole yard needs to be resodded. And she's like, not from those pictures that I see. She's like, no, I want her released immediately.
So you were going to sit in jail while they resodded your yard?
He wanted me to continue to sit in jail and not come home to my family.
Green was released on the judge's order.
I'm Adam. I'm with ABC Action News.
We caught up with Creekview HOA attorney Francis Frischia, the one who asked for the arrest warrant outside his office.
Do you think that was kind of harsh to have her spend 5 days or 7 days, I believe, in jail?
I have no comment, but I'll email you on that.
He emailed us a statement saying in part, quote, Ms. Green received notices of violations. She disregarded them. Ms. Green failed to show up in court on August 19th. Her failure to abide by the court's instruction led to the arrest warrant being issued. We called and left a business card at the Creekview HOA president's home, and we called and emailed the HOA's property management company, which issued the violations. We didn't hear back from either. Legal experts say there are lessons to be learned.
Sometimes they act in a petty manner, but if they decide that you need to do something, you need to follow the rules. And when a judge tells you to do something, you have to do it.
I think that they have way too much power. I mean, I never heard of anything like this in my life.
I'm My Team investigator Adam Walser with photojournalist Matt McGlashan, taking action for you.
Wild story there. The HOA board recently hired a new property management company to enforce its regulations, which started last month. Now, our Adam Walsler has been investigating homeowners associations and everything that comes with them all over the Tampa Bay area for several years now. We want to know, are you in a battle with your HOA, or do you feel your HOA is not listening to you? Well, we are here to listen. Scan this QR code at the bottom of your screen to reach out to our iTeam tip line. Your message will be sent directly to Adam to investigate your concern.
So I think that I do believe that the prompt is a little bit tongue in cheek for those who are asking about what's the skill that was required here. The skill, if you go by the story, is again tongue in cheek, I think, but it's having a green thumb. It's the ability to keep or the upkeep of a lawn according to some rules that this housing area has. After says what skill was supposed to be had, judge could just be a dick regardless of race. Judge is a dick, can't call him racist. And by the way, shout out to Forecast, who's out there, and I hope I didn't miss anyone. Kofi, the Black Critic, shout out to you guys as well for joining. But most of you, like Matron and a few others, said, well, it's straight up racism. Here's the thing. I'll just add my own 2 cents here. Here's the thing. You got to understand, these judges in most of these places are voted in are voted in, right? You have this housing, what do you call it again? You have this housing community that does have its rules, etc. And his job or her job as a judge is to enforce these rules. And when they go after a black woman like this, let's be clear, they're trying to get her up out of the community. That's all that's going on here. She said something interesting. She said, you know, she works hard, etc. It felt bad being in the orange jumpsuit. But she tried to have a better place, so to speak, for her children. And you know, that's the part that gets us in trouble. Because when we think a better place, we tend to think, well, if you go around white folks, you'll have a better standard of living. But they got the rules in these little places to get you up out of there. Now, after she spent 7 days in a prison, who knows what could have happened to her in 7 days, right? Is she really going to want to stay there much longer? By the time they throw another little incident, a little hissy fit at her, she's not going to want to stay there. They would have won that because they control the rules, they control the judge and all that kind of thing. So you got to look at that as racism. There's no other way to look at it. However, one of the things we should be talking about as well is we should be talking about solutions. Where is the black gated community for her to have gone where she felt it was a better lifestyle for her and her children? Where we probably wouldn't have taken her as far as a court and seen her end up in jail for 7 days. I think that's the thing we got to think about. Before we start talking about it, though, let's introduce our panelists so far tonight. We got Buana here with us. Buana, how are you this week?
Coco, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm good, brother. I hope you good. Black Seal, I'm hoping you're good as well.
Yes, sir. Thanks for that. Thanks for being here as always, Buana. Let's welcome in our brother Bakari. How are you this week?
Everything is everything, my brother.
Cool,
Everything
cool.
is good. How your pops? How your pops?
He's stable right now. But still trying to push him to you know, kind of get up out of this situation, you know.
Yeah.
But thanks. Last but not least, Black Steel, how are you this week?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Another day in paradise. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for asking, and thanks for being here as well. With that said, where should I start with this? There's a lot of comments. I'll get to some of those in a second. But Buana, let me start with you on this one. Buana, what are your thoughts? Is this racism or a skill issue?
No, it seems to be some racism. I don't know how. Where is he? What state is she in? What state?
Good question. Let me look it up while you talk.
She was in Florida.
Okay, so I'm knowing that in different HOA agreements there are different things inside there. So I don't know how the Florida state work in terms of the housing associations. If I was reading a housing association document, I would have to see whether I could be put in jail based off of how my lawn is. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. And I've never heard such a thing. Because my lawn is set up a certain way, I should be maybe penalized where you issue me some kind of tax or lien or penalty or something. But send me to jail, give me a custodial sentence because of how my lawn is cut, that's unheard of. I don't even, if you look at the history of this housing association, I would have to see whether anyone was sent to jail based on their lawn not necessarily being cut in a certain way. How should my lawn be cut? Yeah, I'm moving into a housing association, so they're telling me now You should keep your yard a certain way. So now I'm cutting my grass. So now they come in and tell me, oh, it shouldn't be cut that way. And since you cut it that way, I'm gonna send you to jail. This is ridiculous. This I don't know who our attorney is. I don't. She need to be crying from the rooftops. And I know they're trying to use lawfare. There's this term now where the president, President Trump uses lawfare to get the things that he wants. And these people are trying to use lawfare to get this lady out of this community. But she needs to get some lawyers in there. She needs to make some more noise. I have a problem with that. I have a big problem with that. Yeah, me personally, this may seem sexist. I'm asking because she was with that dude. I'm like, why wasn't he sent to prison? But needless to say, I just think that anyone trying to get into a housing community or any kind of community like that, read thoroughly through the documents you're signing on to, because I would have never thought, maybe Black Steel could let me know. I would have never thought that you could get sent to prison based off of how your lawn is set out. That is absolutely absurd. Never heard such a thing. So I do believe it has to do with racism. I do believe they're trying to get her out of that community. And I do believe that they're using the lawfare along with the judge to get her out of that community. But I'm curious to hear, since it's in Florida, what Black Steel has to say about it. I'll leave it there.
I appreciate that, Buana. Brother Bakari, is this racism or a skill issue? What say you?
I would say it's racism putting her in jail, but I'm gonna tell you something, man. I've seen worse than that. See, what happened is when you go into these HOAs, the people who live there, they're never over the HOA. It always some on the outside. HOA can put a lien on your house and sell your house, and a lot of the time that's what they want to force her to leave. You ain't gonna know it was somebody from that HOA that bought that house and resell it. But those are the things they do. Like she went to jail. That was a horrible thing. But like I said, actually knew a couple of people that had liens put on their home, and it was taken from them because they didn't live by the HOA rules. But a bigger issue, what you said, is how we think going to live somewhere around the people that have done the things that they have done throughout their history, dealing us, how they can always get a pass. It's better if I live next to them. So I need to go over there, because what we would talk about the drugs or the drive-bys, wherever where we live, the violence. But we absolutely forget about the violence, and we forget about their violent history. We forget about their drug usage and their drugs. We forget because they get a pass and we don't. That's why when I did my live today, when I said, how do we see ourselves? We see ourselves less than. They have a superiority complex. We have an inferiority complex. So we continue to run to these places, and we will continue to go through these things. Sad thing, she went to jail. It was a sad thing that I knew people that had a lien put on their home for not living by the HOA rules. But when we don't want to live somewhere and create our own rules and control what part of our destiny that we can, these will be the things that we will continue to go through. And on that, I yield the mic.
I appreciate it. Earlier when Bakari entered the stream, he talked about something very interesting. He talked about the Ozarks. I think that's in Michigan, in rural Michigan, and he talked about how some white folks recently decided to get some land and just make it like whites only land, and there's black folks who are upset about that. About let them people go where they want to go. It's for you to go make your blacks only land, and that's the problem I have with the situation that we're in America. Before I go to Black Steel, let me read some comments in the chat. What's up, the forecast? Matron says it's racism. Arthur says incarcerated without bond is wild. He comes around and says it's racism. I don't see any skill issue here. The matron says HOAs are the devil. You're paying them to punish you. Forecast says they was trying to send her a message. Definitely racism. Kofi the Black Critic says, what's up? After said he says why I say it's a skill issue is because it's a skill to avoid these people. It's a skill to float under the radar. I can't argue with that too much. After I get your point. Wardrum says her yard wasn't the worst, and other people had vans. That's the thing I took from it too. There was other yards that were bad, had vans similar to hers, but she got singled out. I wonder why. Wardrum says pure racism. After says you can waste your time arguing why it's not fair. Someone said it's racism. It's always going to be racism. The place has racism baked in the pie. Can't fight that too tough. But that doesn't mean you can't call it out. Like Buana said some years ago on Shoot the Breeze, you gotta throw the stone, right? Kofi says some Negroes, this voting means nothing. KW Don 7, shout out to KW Don 7. He says it doesn't look like she had the covering and protection of a man. I think that's something to be discussed a bit as well. Shirley Easy is out there saying what's up. D Webb says my personal dealings with HOA in Florida, it's all about money. If you have the money to legally fight back, it really don't matter your color. They can put a lien for garbage cans placed in the wrong spot. That's one thing they didn't mention, how she went to court and produced documents of her own without a lawyer, and they just summarily rejected them, which is interesting also. Afro Native World quotes, housing bylaws, HOA bylaws, typically do not involve prison time, while violating HOA rules can lead to consequences such as fines or other penalties. Arrest is not a typical outcome for most violations. A matron offering a solution. Have some racial pride and create a black community with rules enforced by black people. Sounds just like what Brother Bakari was talking about as well. I guess Wardrum corrected me. He said Arkansas. My bad. I thought it was in rural Michigan. My bad. It's in Arkansas. KW Don said the same thing. With that said, man, and by the way, thanks to the chat for all your responses. Let's keep that going throughout the night. With that said, Black Steel, what are your thoughts about everything you've seen and heard here tonight?
Well, first of all, thanks for everybody's contribution to the topic. And thank you, Coco, for picking up on my tongue-in-cheek title for this because there is no skill issue, right? They're trying to say her grass wasn't good or her van, all the other things. And so this story comes from out of my area. And I found out after looking at this story on the news that lawyer for her HOA is the same lawyer for my HOA. So apparently he governs all the HOAs in the area, right? There are certain rules, but the enforcement of those rules is really up to the board. So that's one thing I want to say. So, for example, she mentioned how basically she saw people who had worse than hers. Basically, because they want this woman out. Long story short, like Bakari was saying, they want this woman out of there. So they enforce the rules. They harass certain people, right? Whereas other people, like, I got a letter one time for having some weeds in my flower bed. And there's a dude down the street who has grass high enough to hide a tiger. He's not getting anything in the mail, or he's not getting fined or punished. But again, it's a complexion for the protection. So it's definitely a racism. It reminds me of the housing covenants that existed, previously in the 20th century. White people would create homes and they would have housing covenants where no one was allowed to sell a home to a black person or a Jewish person, so on and so forth. So what these homeowner associations do, because outright discrimination in housing has been outlawed, they find a way around it by creating these homeowners associations with these rules that they can arbitrarily enforce. And that's really what has happened with this woman. She is married. There's another story to show her with her husband and kids, so she is married. But just overall, this HOA is being used as a way to remove individuals from the community that they don't want to have there. And if I'm sorry, my dog's acting a fool. If they did want to create a hold on a second. If they did want to create an all-black housing development, that would quickly be declared illegal, right? So you said, well, only black people can live here. Like you mentioned the this thing in fucking Arkansas. If it came, black people don't really want to live around these crackers, first of all. But if it came down to it, it would be found to be illegal. You can't legally discriminate against somebody like that. Black people just don't want to live up in the mountains, which I can't really blame them. But if black people were to say, hey, we just want all black development, then you can't only, that would be quickly be found illegal. Another thing too, with this HOA, basically you're paying these people to harass you. So the thing about HOA is that you can vote them out too. But the idea, she didn't get sent to jail for the grass. She got sent to jail for contempt of court because she missed her court date. But she said she never received notice of her court date. So the idea was that she was sent to jail not so much on the grass, but the fact that she didn't return to her court date after she had fixed everything. Then to compound that, they wanted to leave her in jail. So imagine she'd already spent 7 days in jail. They wanted to leave her in jail until her grass was up to code. Now, you guys may not know the weather around here. It was the grass they're pointing out being brown or whatever. It's during a drought. And we have restrictions on when you can and can't water your grass. So this woman was definitely singled out because, of course, her grass was going to be discolored because we're in the middle of a drought. But yet they're still holding her to these rules. So to me, it's definitely a racism issue. And the HOA serves the purpose of the housing covenants of the past. And the problem is that most new homes that you're going to get are going to have an HOA. 70% of all new housing is within an HOA because it serves to, keep the neighborhood the way they want to make it look. And they may get one or two of us in there, but the HOA is meant to kind of preserve the racial, problem. The solution, first of all, your HOA can be disbanded. If the majority of the residents can get together and vote, they can disband that HOA with no problem. It's happened before, but I believe that it would have to take some unity within and some skilled organization to get that done. So those are my thoughts on that. Thanks, Kofi.
Appreciate that. Juan, you wanted to follow up anything that Black Steel had to say because you was curious about what he had to say about it.
Yeah, even if it's a contempt of court issue, a judge, well, like I say, you get these bomber judges, and they are trying to practice lawfare because this is a woman who, first of all, she's a working woman. She is a mother of a few children. Why would you issue her a custodial sentence to take her away from all that in terms of punishing her because she missed a court date? Now, I would have to. I think that she is wrong in going about the business. Well, maybe not, but she's not a lawyer. But I would advise people to get somebody who could speak on their behalf, because the first question I would ask is, where are the notice papers? Because she was talking about being on court on a specific date. So obviously the notice papers wasn't filed. She didn't receive them. So that's an issue that I would bring up. Where's the papers itself? Show me some documentation that I would have signed off on the notice on where I need to appear before court. I need to have some more information. Who's the server? I need some more information to work with. So maybe I'm missing a few facts in terms of exactly what happened, but I have a big issue because in the Bahamas we had covenant laws where blacks could only live in certain areas and whites could only live in certain areas. Could you imagine such a thing in a country full of black people? They had covenant laws like that's insane. That's insane. But since Black Seal said that they could be voted out in the United States, I would just seek to try to get rid of it because there's probably a bunch of Karens and male Karens, being on a part of those boards. So you need to get some people in there who is not as strict and racist, because this is ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous, but that's my thoughts, Koku.
In the 80s, there was a hurricane coming. My uncle was what we call a hacker, and he was going to deliver some plywood to an area called Lightfoot Key, if you don't know the Bahamas. And a black boy who was a guard that stopped us with a gun and was like, where y'all think y'all going? I'll never forget that, man. That's in my own hometown. So yeah, these areas, that kind of stuff happens.
Notice, folks. What he say? He say a black god, a Bahamian black god, was trying to stop other black folks from going to certain areas at gunpoint. And you know what? He would have killed them if they'd do something. Lord have mercy. Wow. All right, Koku. I'll leave it.
Yeah, I know.
That's insane. That is insane.
That stuck with me till now. That stuck with me. I was in the 80s. KW Don says the white nationalists are looking to expand to Missouri for all white towns. Also, After says keep the property value up by keeping it white. Logical, diabolical. He goes on to say, I'm sorry for what she went through. I've had to be in court. It weighed on my life. It was a weight over my head. She said she inquired and never heard back from them. The area is not an all white area; it's a rich area, but so it's mostly white. But yeah, that guy stopped us. But we don't think y'all good. Okay, my bad. And my uncle was hired to deliver that plywood too, because people use plywood to like cover their windows and all that kind of stuff. And he was hired to come bring that. That boy said, "We all good." Yeah. So that's interesting stuff. Now Cheryl asks a question here. I'll let Black Seal answer it since he's familiar with the area. She says, "I'm curious on the demographic of the neighborhood." Now I have an idea what it is, but Black Seal, you have any insight on that?
It's mainly white and Latino. Lot of his Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, white people, and I'd say it's probably about 25-35% black. Most of the black people live in area. Bakari knows the Progress Village. That's mainly the black area, but although that area is being highly gentrified, but it's if you consider Latinos to be a minority, it's a majority minority neighborhood. Many Hispanic people live out there. So, but there's a decent amount of black people in there too. So it's not uncommon to see African black people out there.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not uncommon to see black folks out there. Okay. Cheryl says, boom, there you go. First problem. With that said, we got our brother Kofi joining us. Kofi, how are you this week?
I'm doing good. This was a very, very good, heart-wrenching topic. And wow, it's just wow. I have family in Tampa. They don't live in the subdivision, so they don't need an HOA fee. But I personally don't live in the subdivision. I have my mother used to live in a subdivision, and yeah, when you put out your garbage cans, it has to be on this side of the road, not that side of the road. You can't put it out too early. You can't put it out too soon. You gotta get out there with a ruler and figure out, okay, my grass can't be no more than 5 inches. It's hectic. It's crazy. This is very, very heart wrenching, and me speaking of someone who has been, for legal reasons I can't really get into it, falsely accused and imprisoned for just, I'm white and I say so. I feel her pain. I really feel her pain. 7 days, and that rings with me because I was locked up for 7 days, and for them to be like, oh, all right, fine, my bad, so I hear I feel her pain. The thing about this, I'm not excusing racism. I'm kind of trying to explain the racism. We all know that after World War II, you had a lot of vets that had the GI Bill, and this is when the cadets came home and they were able. There was building new homes and everything, and everyone with their GI Bill, they were able to get new homes. They were able to get new jobs. I forgot the name of this video, or maybe Black Steel may help me with it. It was a black and white video that was given out around that time, and it was basically talking about Black people moving into white neighborhoods. So they had this stigma of saying that was propagated, saying if a Black person lives next to you, your property value goes down, right? And so in this black and white video was basically saying all the racist stereotypes of what it means when a Black person lives next to you and the value of your home. And it's a mixed bag. They had white people that was saying, I don't care as long as they, keep their place up, keep their place clean and stuff like that. I don't care if the person is Black. Then you had some people like, hey, look, I don't mind a nigger living next to me, but I don't want my property value going down. And you had the other one saying, nah, I don't want niggas around me. You know what I'm saying? But this black and white video dispels the notion of Black people bringing your property value down. So we all know that while the truth is putting on his shoes, the lie has already traveled around the world like 3-4 times. So with that, you probably have these people with this same particular mindset. And we have to understand it's the HOA. I don't know how their HOA works, but the one in Florida and the one in Georgia is usually a committee of people in that subdivision that lives in that subdivision. So a lot of people don't like living in subdivision because they have to adhere to the HOA. And then if you piss somebody off that's 4 doors down or whatever, and they know something from the HOA, they could put just really take the screws with you as far as like, well, you put your garbage can, the garbage people came and they took it on Friday, and Saturday morning I saw it. You're supposed to, it's a whole lot. But again, it is. You did say something interesting, Koku. Where is the Black subdivision? I would love to see that. There is no such thing, from what I know, a Black subdivision. All the subdivisions my mother lived in is always a mixed group. So Port St. Lucie, Granite County in Georgia, it's a mixed bag. It's never really a whole bunch of white people. We never want to live around a whole bunch of white people. I say this all the time. I'm not saying all white people are racist. You know what I'm saying? That would be ridiculous to say that, right? But to me, it's a matter of numbers. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be moving soon. And when I'm moving, I have no problem living in an all Black neighborhood, but it has to be an upscale Black neighborhood. I lived in upscale, middle class Black neighborhoods. I got nothing wrong with that. But it's to find those neighborhoods, right? What I'm saying, once you live in a predominantly white area, it's only a matter of time till you're going to get a lot of racist people. You can have a white friend that's cool. He could be an ally. He could be this. He could be that. The moment you start getting a couple of his friends or his family members, based on the numbers, someone's going to be racist. That's just how it is. I've seen this played out all the time. But I'll just pretty much end it here. I mean, she should move. I feel she should move and find a neighborhood that's a little bit more friendly to her needs. That's not the only neighborhood. I know she paid a lot for the house or whatever. So, but I think she should move and find a more friendly subdivision. She's in Tampa. Tampa's not a small place. Tampa's a big place. I also have a little family in Tampa. So I think she should do that. But I really feel her pain. And yeah, I think, people always say, well, why is it up to you? Why you always look at celebrities and have celebrities, do these endeavors that Black people need? Why? Because when white people get rich, white people make sure other white people get rich. They make sure that their people are fine. Like a week ago, we're already talking about there's a community where it's whites only whites only. Nobody else can come. Whites only, and you can't say nothing, right? Because we got Juneteenth and we got all these Black holidays. What's happening? What's wrong with the white man now? Right? The white man can't have nothing to himself, right? So I'm saying that to say You have Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey. You have all these rich Black American entrepreneurs. I don't understand the selfishness of it. If you could open up a subdivision, it's lucrative. It's a business. You'll make money off of that, right? You'll make money off of that. We Black people need a safe space in this country. And I don't know. I'm not person to say, money's the root of all evil. Maybe when I get a certain amount of money, maybe that virus would affect me. But me as an everyday average person, like, understand you want to make money. You don't want to throw your money away. And, but you can make money off of building a legit, there's acres of land in this country. And if Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry and all these people worth all these hundreds of millions of billions of dollars, they could do that. But I don't know. All right, I'll end it right there. Thanks.
I wanna add
Can I
something.
say something? Wait a minute.
I know Bakari is going to come at me.
I ain't gonna come at you. I'm not coming at nobody because I know everybody wanna. I don't want to live in no subdivision, whether it's Black or not. I don't want to live in no gated community. I don't want to be like Europeans. That's European stuff. Gated communities keep the peasants out and the rich people in. And then you end up like a billionaire row in Palm Beach down there with Epstein with Trump's time. Let's go over here and get some of the peasants that are homeless, and then they can come work for us. We can look down on them. I don't. Other people want to live in those areas. I don't want to live in no subdivision. But I wanted to touch on something you said, Kobe, when you said the HOA committees in Georgia is people that live in the subdivision. I thought that for a long time too. And it's also touching on something Black Steel said. The people you see in the subdivision that say they're HOA committee, they report to the real HOA committee. The damn mayor of the town that I live in was over 26 HOAs. Her, one dude on the city council, and a lawyer. They were over 26 HOAs. And then you know what? And they had somebody in real estate with them too. The people you see in there, they're just there. They don't make no rules. People who don't live there make the rules. People you will never see, for the most part, you'll never know, for the most part, make the rules. The only reason I know the mayor was over, and I ain't finna talk about this, but I told y'all once before, when they offered me a certain amount of money to be quiet, that when they start telling me, that's when she started telling me what she was over and what they were over and what they control. The people you see ain't over nothing. Like when Black Steel said, and that lawyer was the lawyer for his HOA. Yeah, man, they be running and they want to get rid of the Black people. And one more thing, I'm gonna say this: stop letting people tell you your value. When they say my property value, they are not valuing on damn land and on house. If the land and house wasn't worth nothing, they wouldn't want it. They're putting value on you. So I ain't saying nobody said it, but I always ask people, let's stop repeating white people words. This is going to make our property value go down. No, 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 no. I don't want that car in my front yard. See, look where they put the trash can in there. Stop repeating them because they're telling us we have no value. We have to stop repeating everything them folks say and everything they do. Now,
Sorry, I was only saying that as a lesson, as a
I
lie.
didn't say nobody said that. I was just saying
So,
when you mentioned it, I'm
all right,
saying that's what I always tell people. That's what when you mention property value, that's just how I see it. They're not valuing the land, the house. They are putting value on our Black ass. But that's all I wanted to say. I yield the mic.
Go ahead, boy. I know you're going to say something.
Oh yeah, I wanted to throw a little mix into this because I've lived in three different kinds of communities. I've lived in a wealthy Black community where my folks are. I live in the community I live in right now, which is a round-the-way community. And then, I've spent time in poor communities. And there's a different culture that exists throughout all those communities. I think the brother was talking about, Arthur Reserve was talking about class. People do different things in different communities, even though they are predominantly Black. And what I have found is in wealthier Black communities, it's very, you don't hear nothing. Nothing goes on. extremely quiet, extremely quiet. You know, and for some people that's good. They don't mind that. For me, I like living around the way because on the weekends you get to hear the reggae music blasting in some places. You get to smell some people cooking different kinds of foods. You have a little bit more mix of culture. You can meet people from different places and spaces. You hear Haitian dialogues going on. You hear cute Spanish dialogues, depending on where your grocery stores are. During on the holidays, you hear the drum beating. You know that because we have Junkanoo. That's our culture. So people preparing, so they beating on them goat skin drums. So you can hear that from a distance. You hear that music in the air. And if you live in certain communities. Now, if you live in poor communities, I feel like the rules are very different, and it's these are unsaid rules. You know, there's more of a police presence there. The danger aspect goes up. The danger aspect goes up. For a lot of people, that's the difference. The danger aspect. You have brothers them hanging out in corners. Sometimes you don't know. You have different kinds of issues going on in poor communities. So there is distinctive differences based off of where you are. For some people don't mind it. Or for others, I understand what Brother Bakari is saying. What Brother Bakari is saying is like, man, listen, I don't mind living in a, I don't, because these people are trying to create a culture. But I understand what Kofi is saying because there's a danger aspect when it comes to, and it's going to seem bad, when it comes to unregulated Negroes. When it comes to unregulated
Yeah,
Negroes,
that's
there's a
pretty bad.
danger.
That's pretty bad one.
There's a danger. I know. Forgive me, man. But I live in an environment. I know how Negroes are. They'll play reggae music, blast into 3 o'clock in the morning, and don't care. Yeah, so that's why you need. For me, I need a little bit more regulation. You know, you can have your music playing at a certain hour. You're gonna implement rules where at 11 o'clock, you know, during a weekday, you can't be blasting reggae music. And then you can't be smoking, hanging on the street corner, smoking weed out in the open, like don't caring and stuff like that. So I understand the idea of regulation. That even within our communities, I believe you need to have rules. You can't be willy nilly because brothers them are gonna. I believe that the abuses are gonna happen. So I believe sometimes in regulation for some brothers. This is how it is, man. But that's just my belief on it. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it.
Real quick before Black Steel goes, Afro-Native World in the chat asks a question. Where does the Rastafari community live in the Bahamas? Are they rural based? I'll let you answer that one since he addressed it to you.
Okay. Okay. Different areas. Different areas. Some live in this area called Carmichael Road, way out like how Arthur Reserve said in rural areas. They live. Sometimes they live among the immigrants, like Haitian nationals and stuff like that, because they have. It's a whole lot of. It's very unregulated in certain areas. It depends on where you go. So you have people in Carmichael Road. You have some people in not Nassau Village. It's called Gambia. You have a lot of places in Gambia. You have Rasta villages in South Beach. It just depends on where you are collectively, Rastafarian community. And it depends on the Rastafarian community too. You have Nyabingi, you have 12 tribes, just like Jamaica. You have different Rastafarian orthodoxies. So it just depends on the Rastafarian denomination that you're talking about. But they live all around in different areas of the Bahamas. So you would just have to come and see and try to get in where you fit in terms of who you'd want to link up with if you was to come here and want to link up with the Rastafarian community. But that's what I've found here. So.
Yeah, we call them Rasta camps when I was growing up. There was one in my area up on Andrews Avenue. That was pretty cool. Afro World says thanks. With that said, let's let Black Seal have the last word on this. Black Seal will say.
So I understand what you're saying, Juan, about the need for regulation, right? I grew up in a neighborhood that people just did what they wanted to. So, they didn't cut their grass. I had somebody who was a hoarder. They had piles of trash and old cars that couldn't work, and they attracted rats and things like that. So I understand the need for regulation. But my issue with this situation is that this is not regulation, right? Because the rules are not equally enforced. This woman was harassed, she was hounded, and so there, you know, I think sometimes we have the idea that just because, you know, poor neighborhoods tend to attract more crime, unfortunately. When you live in a poor neighborhood, you got to deal with people dealing drugs, playing their music 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, fighting, things like that. I understand the desire to move to a better area for your family, for your loved ones. That's a common sentiment I hear people say. Black neighborhoods tend to be poor, and she wanted to get her children someplace where they wouldn't have to worry about being harassed and whatnot. But I think that the issue lies with the selective enforcement of the HOA, the harsh measures they took in place. Of course, I think we can all agree on that. And how the HOA is basically used as a way to enforce the housing covenants that existed. So um, I would say I hope she could move, sell her house, because you know right now the housing market is pretty hot. The only thing is that most new developments you're going to find are going to have an HOA. Maybe she can't get a new home. Maybe she gets something kind of old on the older side, but you know it's been inspected and whatnot. But this is a horrible situation, and she's not the first are the only person who's gone through this. And it just shows how racism just continuously reinvents itself over time. You know, one minute you have housing covenants, you have sundown towns, and then you can't do that anymore, but then they'll change it up. So whenever black people start keeping up, they'll change the music on us to reinforce the same racist laws and things like that to keep black people in our so-called place.
Well said. Well said there, Black Steel. You know what? Let's move on to Shooter Breeze topic number 2. And let's wish